A pleasant good evening. It's Thursday, the 20th day of February in the year 2025. My name is Christopher Jones, welcoming you to another edition of Lash. Cash grant checks gone missing. The PPP continues to push back on the corruption index and much more on tonight's program. Joining me once again is Mr. Ganesh Mahiaul, the Shadow Minister of Local Government and Regional Development. We did promise you last Tuesday that we will continue the discourse. Joining me tonight, Mr. Mike Paul. Good evening.
Good night, Chris, and good night to your viewers. Yes, we did promise to continue the discussion from last Tuesday, and it's a pleasure being here again with you and your viewership.
Thank you. And you did indicate earlier in a text message that you're prepared to be on the program for another 10 years.
Duly noted.
Yes, background story. So, Ganesh, we want to continue the discourse where we left off last Tuesday. And of course, we were discussing at that time the cash grant and the chaos that is ensuing as it relates to person collecting those. Now, we're learning today that there are some amount of cash grants that are missing, which, well, are missing and totaling just about at this time about 60 something million dollars. What do you heard about that?
Well, I want to, you just have to put these things into context, and then you have to also clear the air because oftentimes, we have people from the People's Progressive Party who are listening to these programs and they tend to give it their own interpretation and meaning. So let us put at rest, first off, that the APNU and the AFC support cash distribution to the citizens of Guyana, and it can come in various forms and means. In this instance, it's a $100,000 cash distribution to people who are 18 years and older. We believe it should have been more.
Yeah.
But as we have gotten the $100,000 in these hard times, knowing that cost of living is at its worst in our country, everything is basically expensive. The $100,000 is most welcoming, but should have been more. However, we in the opposition, we have continuously signaled our concern in terms of the methodology of distribution, the transparency and accountability of the distribution, and whether it will be done in a manner that can ensure people not being disenfranchised. We see that people are being disenfranchised. We see of the lady from Parfait Harmony that indicated somebody else collected her cash grant, went to the bank and changed the check and got the money. I don't know how they intend to address that situation, but that woman deserves her money. I don't know if the person who collected her cash grant also collected her own one,
Yeah.
which would have given her 200,000 if such is the case. But outside of that, the 60 odd million dollars that we're learning haven't gone missing is cause for concern. And it is likening the situation to the COVID cash grant, where several persons who were employed by the government, aligned to the People's Progressive Party, showed physically how they enriched themselves right after the COVID cash grant. You heard of many of them buying vehicles,
Yeah.
changing their roofs,
Yeah.
and furnishing their homes with expensive furniture and the likes. So it is begging the question whether something of that nature has reoccurred. And it is very worrying when you have situations like these, and the government, its silence is leaving much to be desired. So it just strengthens the point that this government is slowly recognizing that they're a one-term government and everybody's trying to fill their pockets. And everybody's trying to fill their pockets with the oil resource, much to the displeasure of the masses. And it is a matter of time before the red light comes to a stop.
Yeah. I'm happy that you actually hinted that in terms of the PPP's position, their current posture, they are aware that The tides are changing, and of course, there will be a one-term government. And I want to bring you now to a discourse I had on last week's program with Annette Ferguson and Coretta McDonald. And this was, of course, we were dealing with the survey that was done across the country. Now, you, as a member of the Central Executive of PNC, you will be fully aware of the survey that was done, conducted across the country. We were told that there's some over 15,000 plus persons who the survey had surveyed. And when it came to corruption, and ironically, the night that we had this discourse, the following day is when we saw the Transparency International's index report. Not saying that their report is as a result of the findings from the survey that was conducted, but as it relates to corruption in government, with the 15,000 plus persons that were surveyed across the country, when that question was posed to them, um, how corrupt is the current administration? We had a total of 88% of the persons who were surveyed said that the People's Progressive Party is very corrupt. And then you had 12% who said corrupt. So whether it's very or corrupt, it's a totality of 100% corrupt. So essentially, that the Guyanese people are aware of corruption in almost every government agency and ministry and so forth. Hence, now we're seeing the cash grant and the checks that are gone missing, which is nothing new because, as you mentioned before, it is similar that had occurred when we had the cash grant during the COVID period. But let's just quickly go through this survey findings and we'll go through a few others and then we'll go to the next item.
Sure, right. But I want to also say, Chris, that I had the privilege of seeing three other polls that were done,
Yeah.
three other questionnaires that were answered by random Guyanese across the country, and none has put the People's Progressive Party in the winning situation. One
Yeah.
poll I recall showed that they are 44% likable in
Mhm.
our country, and that was done in January of last year, and then by December, when a similar poll was done again, it showed 40%. So it shows that they're deteriorating or they're reducing in terms of their likability in this country. But and it also showed that the APNU standing by itself and the AFC standing by itself will require them to come together to oust the People's Progressive Party. So I know that there are significant work in play, significant work happening to ensure that the coalition's strength is renewed with a focus on promoting good governance, transparency, and accountability. And I will not fool myself here either on your program. I know that there is a move to basically learn from the last time and to correct the mistakes that were made in the interest of forging ahead united and strong with one mission in mind, and that is to develop our country to the benefit of all Guyanese. So I want to take the opportunity at this juncture, given that we're talking about this, to assure the Guyanese people that work is happening, a lot is happening, and it is in the best interest of the country for us to move forward as a team. And the leaders of both sides have recognized that, and work must go on for the benefit of the country. I'm sure at the opportune time, what needs to be put in the public space will come out in the public space.
Yeah.
But for now, the leaders of the coalition, the leaders of the APNU and the AFC are working tirelessly to forge ahead in an agreement to ensure that there is proper governance structure in place, there is proper modalities, there are proper working arrangements, so that ultimately us in government can focus on moving the country forward for the development of all Guyanese.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And of course, another survey that was done with that, another question rather that was asked is if elections are to be had in 30 days, would you vote PPP? And in that result states 58% of those persons surveyed said no, while 42% said yes. So it is a clear indication. And of course, that's why we're seeing all of the pronouncement. We did mention the fact of Bharat Jagdeo last week, Thursday, on his weekly rant, in which he sought to malign several political leaders and persons who has ambition of getting into the political fray. Today again on NCN, we saw Bharat Jagdeo rant there for another 4 hours. But what I want, the subject I want us to discuss now is not Jagdeo and his rantings, but rather on the National Communications Network, which is a state-run entity that receives taxpayers' funding. The program in which Bharat Jagdeo is featured on is not Bharat Jagdeo as Vice President of Guyana, but rather the PPP General Secretary or General Secretary of the PPP. The PPP loves to talk about party paramountcy, and they've made several references or whatever. But this is a direct case of party paramountcy that the General Secretary of one political party can have a 4 hour per week rant on the National Communications Network. I want to get your take on that.
It's unfair and unfortunate. You cannot have, if he's speaking in his capacity as vice president, then he ought to do it from his office that is aligned or associated with him as vice president. But you cannot be at Freedom House and then you want to talk government business and you want to flip the cap whenever it suits you to say that you're speaking as a government representative being vice president or that you're speaking as general secretary of a political party. There has to be that line that one draws when it comes to political party work and government work. And as you rightly said, party paramountcy is something that is very much problematic in Guyana and in our national sense of whoever holds government. And we as a nation, we have to be more mature in how we operate. The taxpayers' money that is going towards NCN is not to facilitate a one-sided operation where the PPP's general secretary comes on and just berates others and then, talk ill things and them kind of things. It's not about that. And we have to, and that is why I keep saying to people, Chris, that there is a young crop of leadership, a young crop of leaders that the APNU AFC has that are embracing what is right, that are embracing what has to happen and what should happen in the best interest of the entire country. And this young crop of these leaders are focused on putting systems in place that can better the society for the benefit of ourselves and that of the future generation. We have to learn from the past and we have to learn from what is happening and don't have a repeat. The reason why your survey shows that a lot of people are not favoring the People's Progressive Party and the other surveys that I have seen, which I think you are also exposed to, the surveys that we have seen, which shows that the People's Progressive Party is not favored by the majority, is because of what they are doing, and they're doing it wrong. They seem not to want to learn. I see, however, Jagdeo coming up now with a kind of an operation to hit via words some of his ministers, and I see he has started with Bishop Edgil. And we have been saying from a while now that you don't just talk. It makes me remember that 5:30 meeting where you just talk, but we saw no action. And to date, no action still. Bishop Edgil was heavily criticized by Bar Jagdeo, but are they going to do anything about it? And clearly, we're seeing that they are not willing to do anything about it. So, what the PPP is now doing, given those stats that they are well aware of, because these polls that we speak of, these surveys that we speak of, they are also exposed to it. The fact that we have access to it means that they also have access to it because it is no secret. These are polls that were done and the information was shared. So they have access to it. And in their attempt now to correct that mistake is to play on the mindsets, play on the emotions of the citizens. And Jagdeo is trying to do exactly that by now trying to lash out at respective ministers who are tainted and who are painted as corrupt and who control large sections of the budget and provide to the country substandard work. Ejil happens to be the first. It's just a matter of time before he moves down the line and reaches to Priya Manik Chan, reaches to Frank Anthony, reaches to Robertson Ben, reaches to Anil Nandalal, and the others. It's just a matter of time. You're mute. I'm not hearing you
Yes,
clearly.
my apologies. Yeah, I'm happy that you took us down that line. But I want to share with you, and we can have a discussion on this. Perhaps it's just my point of view, but I have noticed over the last 3 years thereabout that there are certain ministers of the PPP who would be um, lambasted in the public space. You aired when you said that it started with Bishop One Edgel yesterday, but this is about the third time in which Barrett Jagdeo have lashed out at Bishop Edgel. There was an engagement there on the SE Cribble course in which something and he shouted out at him there. There was the opening of Gaia Expo, of which from the top of the stage he shouted to him, sit down. And then we saw Irfan Ali when you had the fire. I can't remember which location it was when he lashed out at Minister Ben publicly. Oh, Ben, what you doing, and whatever the case be, and so forth. So again, as I said, perhaps it's just me seeing it this way. But is it a case in which you're seeing these leaders or the leadership of the People's Progressive Party Civic are lashing out at certain ministers? And I mean, you know the makeup of the political party
You know, I
or the
told, listen,
ministers.
listen, I see where you're going. I see where you're
Yes.
going. And you know, I told a friend today
Mhm.
that the lash came to Ejil, but it didn't come to Indar.
Correct.
I said that. And
Correct.
I said to them that it's the black ministers that are getting
That's
the
right.
lashes to send a message.
That's
I
right.
said that you and I did not even speak for the
You
day.
see?
And that very point I
Point.
made to a
Mhm.
friend earlier.
Yeah.
And I keep saying that this government is painting an illusion to talk about inclusion.
Yes.
And they are deliberately doing it because they know what is it that the census shows.
Hmm.
And like, I understand that they are rubber stamps in the PPP.
Yeah.
And I know that I am not in the PNC. So it is not a matter of assurance per se, but it's
Hmm.
a matter of using them
Yeah.
for their own benefits. But they end up lashing out. They end
Mhm.
up trying to send a message of incompetence,
Yes.
which we know that they're incompetent because if you
Yes.
look at all the people who go over to the People's Progressive Party and who embraces the People's Progressive Party, they are not sincere in
Hmm.
their dealings and they
Hmm.
have had questionable characters from the outset.
Yeah.
I have always said Joe Hamilton is one that we have gotten rid of and we're proud of getting rid of him. And he's somebody we don't ever want back. And then if
Exactly.
you simply Google these people who are in the People's Progressive Party, you will be able to see their shady character and what they're
Hmm. Hmm.
associated with.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
these are not matters of making up stories
Yeah.
or trying to just attack anybody's character and the likes. They're genuine concerns, charges, and others that were laid that shows that they have a set of shady characters in their camp, and
Yeah.
they seem to always want to embrace. I remember Ejil in the National Assembly talking about the mayor and city council, and in 2017, what has happened and what did not happen, and the monies for the La Repentier Cemetery. The
Mhm.
mayor of the mayor and city council at that time was Patricia Chase Green,
Exactly.
and Patricia Chase Green is being embraced by the People's Progressive Party. So I don't know what is it that he was trying to say. The
Hmm.
very Guyana Water Authority that they talked so much bad about. Richard Van West Charles was the director there.
That's right.
Richard Van West Charles is embraced by them.
Hmm.
So you cannot cuss out the APNU AFC and try to paint us as bad, and then the very characters that were once associated with us today very organizations that they were aligned to that you claim did bad, you're embracing them. What are you
Exactly.
really, duplicitous and hypocritical? But there are
Exactly.
certain characters and certain elements of the People's Progressive Party that have to do what they're doing, who have gone over, have to do what they're doing because they're looking to save their own prospects. They're looking to secure their own name because they of their shady dealings and shady characters, and they have to do what they have to do.
Yeah.
Clean people, genuine people, and sincere people who can sit and speak strongly and oppose them for malfeasance, oppose them for corrupt practices, are people who are confident about themselves and their character and can live within their means. And they don't have to look to engage in any practice that is unorthodox or any practice that is outside of good dealings. They're people who can live within their means and stand and speak strong against the People's Progressive Party because we refuse to be engaged in any practice that can seek to what influence our ego and the likes. No, there's people who are genuine in terms of what they want for Guyana, what they want for their own being and their own generation, and what they want for the future generation. And if they have to turn sticks and turn stones to get it done, they will do that as opposed to go in bed with a corrupt regime trying to fill their pockets like if there's no tomorrow.
Excellent, excellent. All right, thank you very much. So I'm happy. I'm happy. It's not just me, perhaps seen with a political eye, but indeed, as mentioned. So we are observing now essentially the People's Progressive Party Civic in
I am not hearing you
persons.
clearly, Chris. Something is wrong with your internet, I'm assuming.
You hear me now?
Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, I am. You hearing me? You hearing me?
I wasn't hearing you clearly there just now. I don't know if it was my internet or yours.
Yeah, I think it's yours. Mine is the expensive one.
I have the expensive one, mind you.
So
Uh,
I would say this, and she's that I'm happy it's not just myself who's observing, but essentially the People's Progressive Party Civic in the persons of Irfan Ali and Bharat Jagdeo are publicly lashing out at certain ministers who happen to be their ministers of African descent. Minister Robeson Ben was lashed out against by Irfan Ali and Minister Ejil now for the third occasion. And those ministers in which you have
it could be a
serious
thing also.
allegation.
It could, let me say this too. It could
Mhm.
be a thing that they have against women too, right? Because I remember that 5:30 meeting where they basically lashed out at Priya Manikchan, made her feel like a schoolgirl. I
Yes,
remember when Irfan took off on Priya, like if you know what, he is the alpha and
yes,
dominant one,
yes,
and you're a woman, shut up and listen, and them kind of
yes,
things. That
yes.
kind of reaction and feeling came out of it. So it could be that not only are they targeting the Afro ministers, but also the women. Because
Mhm.
what Priya got there, if I was Priya, I would have resigned immediately.
Mercy, mercy. Remember, if you could, if you dishing it out, you gotta prepare to take it. Because remember Priya when she dished it out on the U.S. ambassador at his home. So
Yeah,
well, if
yeah,
you dish it out, you
yeah.
just gotta be prepared to take it. So we glad we observed.
Exactly.
I want to go back to NCN and Bharat Jagdeo using that platform, which is paid by the taxpayers of the country, essentially party paramountcy, for 4 hours of ranting by the General Secretary of the PPP. The National Communications Network is under the control of the CEO in the person of Nia Suban. And during the consideration of the estimates in Budget 2025, we didn't get to ask several questions that we wanted to. But one of the clarity I was seeking from Prime Minister, who has responsibility for NCN, is as it relates to the high turnover of staff at NCN. And I was able to share with him a list, which is a short list of 24 staff who resigned from the National Communications Network within a 3 month span. And this is not just a casual reporter, not saying that reporters are just casual, but these are editor in chief, long-standing persons who have been with NCN since it was GTV days, like for example Narissa Pearson, Leon Bromell, I have the list. I'll pull it up and share with you, and so forth. What is causing this high turnover of staff, or what is causing so many senior journalists who has been with the National Communication Network since it was GTV to leaving? And one of the insight that I've gotten is that several of those persons who have since resigned laid the blame squarely at the feet of Nia Suban as CEO. I've heard horror stories of when he's not having a good day, he will start cursing from the doorway all the way inside, and every staff member would get a good cursing from Nia Suban. What is happening at NCN?
When you said GTV just now, I'm trying to sort in my head when was NCN GTV. So there's clearly an age gap between you and I, but I then recall, but I then recall that indeed when I was living, well, I'm a born Essequibian, born and bred in Essequibo. And I do recall that there were two television stations we had access to growing up. And I grew up under the People's Progressive Party. And it was RCA Channel 8,
Yes.
which is owned by Alfredo Alfonso.
Yeah.
And I cannot recall NCN being GTV, but I believe it was Channel 11
Right.
NCN. So I don't know about it. I'm not doubting the
Right,
GTV
right,
thing,
right.
right? But it clicks to me that there is an age gap here
Oh
right
my
now.
God.
But
You just saying big and old.
but you see, Chris, a lot has to do with how you treat people,
Yeah.
and professionalism matters. And part of getting the best out of your staff is for you to have respect.
Correct.
Respect
Correct.
given and respect can be received. And I have always said to people that I don't care how old you are for me, and I don't care what is your position and so on. If you don't respect me, I will not respect you. So if you want my respect, then show me respect, and I will give you the respect you rightly deserve also. And you cannot have an environment where you're forcing people who are in a profession that wants to do something that is credible and positive, and you want them to do it for political mileage. You're compromising their being, and they themselves know that some of the things that the NCN and DPI directors want them to do are lies, are propaganda, and that they are not truthful about others. And there's some God-fearing people that we have who work in our various sectors that are not going to subject themselves because of principles to do things that are ungodly, so to speak. So many of these people who are leaving, outside of the fact that they're leaving because of the type of work they are told to do and they're used for, and most of the people that you see that are being sent to our press conferences at the party office, or you see people who are being sent to basically criticize and throw shades and do the dirty work for the PNC are people are the young Afro Guyanese boys and girls who are looking to make an honest living, and they're being given the dirtiest of work. And you see the other ethnic groups, the Indians in particular, they are made to sit down more than once with the ministers of government to ask positive questions, to bring out positive things from the government. The only body of African descent that I see they're using at NCN and DPI with ministers and so on is this boy Shekwan Gill. And they obviously have their reasons why they want to use him. He is very competent, mind you. I think he is one of the best that we have. But it's unfortunate that he finds himself in a situation where he has to be slanting his questions and moving in a direction to bring a certain answer that seeks to criticize the opposition.
Yeah.
Now, nothing is wrong with you asking um, critical questions that are necessary to bring an answer. But the minute you're going to move in a direction of politics, to ask questions to basically criticize the opponent, you're
Loaded
already
question.
showing your cards as though you're taught and
Yeah.
told that you ought
Yeah.
to do it this way. And it defeats the professionalism that one wants to see from you. It
Hmm.
defeats the person you're supposed to be, a man of integrity, a person of good standing, and a person of strength in the field of journalism. So I love Shaquan Gill and his upward mobility as an individual. The way he moves, the way he dresses, the way he speaks. I think he is a modest individual that has a far way to go. It is just unfortunate that you sense and you see and feel that there are times when he moves in a direction to be political, which is not in his DNA.
Exactly. All right. So I sticking with NCN. So let me just quickly go through this short list, which is very long, and I'll give you some example. There is a Safrina Ali, a Jamal Waldron, Joshua Williams, Nigel Drupal, Narissa Pearson, a supervisor. You would be familiar with Narissa Pearson because uh, I
And
recall.
Nigel Drapalto. Nigel was one of those good debaters that the youth parliament had.
Exactly, exactly. You got Onisia Brotherson, Wendell Battery. You should be familiar with Wendell Battery. He was at, I think, the um,
He was at
HGP
HGP
at
Nightly
one
News at
time.
one time.
Um, where am I? You got Roberto Nito, Leron Bromell, editor in chief, Samuel Suknandan. You
Samuel
have
Suknandan was at TV Channel 28 at one time too.
exactly, and very. This is there's one young man when he starts to read the news, you want to listen. You
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
listen.
he has that television and radio voice indeed, and
Correct. You have
his posture and
exactly,
his elegance has always been up there.
exactly. You have a Lisetta nurse, HR manager, um, Ramona Ragnat, supervisor, Sean Henry, manager, Travis Bruce, manager, Ryan Sukram, Marcia Parker, Carl look not,
Chris, I'm
and the list
absolutely
go.
certain that this is not my internet.
Nah, that is me.
I'm
You're not
not
hearing?
getting you at all.
Oh my. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see.
I wasn't get the last I heard from you is the HR manager, some nurse.
Right, the HR manager, Lisetta Nurse. You have Ramona Ragnot, a supervisor. Sean Henry, a manager. Travis Bruce, another manager. Candace Hopkinson, Ryan Sukram, Marcia Parker, and the list goes on. These are this is a short list, which is very long, of staff who resigned from the National Communications Network within a 90 days period, and from persons who would have left, not accrediting my source to any of these individuals here, but they accredit the resignation of these persons squarely at the feet of the National Communications Network CEO Nia Suban. And
And
even sorry,
I
go
am
ahead.
forced to agree with you because some of those names you called have a track record of also operating in the best interest of the PPP. So I found it very strange that some of those names are on. Of
Mhm.
course, I will seek to make contact with them and ask them what really went down
Yeah,
so that I can get more information too. But it has to be that something was wrong or something is wrong with the
yeah.
manner in which the CEO is operating.
Exactly. So it needs to be looked, and of course, as I mentioned before, this entity comes under the prime minister. I mean, you quite often label prime ministers are robbers, anyhow, and
He
the
is a
list
rubber
goes.
stamp. I will say
There
it
you go.
anywhere, anytime, any place. He is a rubber stamp. He was used to be put there, and he has no effectiveness in the way he operates as prime minister. I remember putting questions to him concerning the gas to energy project, requesting documents from him, who has the portfolio of overseeing that. And Ashley Singh had to jump to his defense.
Yeah.
Ashley Singh had to stand up in the National Assembly and say that and basically try to defend the rubber stamp prime minister. I have no apologies for calling him a rubber stamp. He is a rubber stamp.
Is your internet on? Are you hearing me clearly?
My internet is on, and I don't know if you heard what I said there, but
I
I said I
did.
have no apologies for calling him a rubber stamp.
I did. I did. I did. All right. So, viewers who just joined the program, my guest In the second part of our two-part series is Mr. Ganesh Mahiaul, a Central Executive Member of the People's National Congress Reform, and he is the Shadow Minister of Local Government and Regional Development in the National Assembly. And of course,
And
he
I'm
also
not a rubber stamp.
he's not a rubber stamp. And of course, one of the main items we are discussing tonight is cash grant checks that has gone missing. If you've just joined the program, that is the latest development in the cash grant saga. Hundreds of checks have gone missing, totaling some $60 million and counting. And of course, there seems to be no accountability, transparency in the distribution process, and we continue to see people complaining about the troubles that they're having collecting their checks. Just today, Ganesh, on the program Jumpstart, I don't know if it's the same segment, what frets you, but I recall a caller, a Knights, calling today on the program. He went to uplift his check yesterday, and he was told that his check was uplifted on Monday. And when they presented the list to him and showed him where the signature is, it is not, as he mentioned, it is not his signature, but somebody signed and collected his check. We know the popular one with Miss Ali, the different spelling of the name and so forth. And not only that the check was uplifted, but it was also cash at the commercial bank, which is even more worrying because you expect these different layers. Because for example, if somebody goes to the bank with that check and that person have to present his or her ID card, the bank at least should have picked up that the name, the spelling is different. What is happening? And we still see the confusion. Persons turned up as well to some of the callers today on the program, complain as well that when they went to uplift their check based on the Ministry of Finance app, which directed them that your check is ready to be uplifted at point A, when they arrived there, only to be told that their names are not on the list and they have to then be re-registered. This is the PPP, as we mentioned before. Anything that the PPP sets out to do as they relate to major projects, you always have chaos and confusion accompanying them. How are these people still in office to this day and age?
The people of Guyana will have to answer that question. Why are they in office to this day and age? But at the end of the day, Chris, they love a confusion because
Yes,
where there is confusion, it breeds the room for corruption.
that's correct.
Wherever there is confusion, breeds the room for corruption. And the
Mhm.
People's Progressive Party love corruption because corruption allows them to engage in activities that can lead to them filling their pockets.
Yes.
So there is never going to be a smooth sailing in any transaction because where there is smooth sailing, there can't be corruption. And where
Correct.
there is no corruption doesn't give them the breathing space to fill
Mhm.
their pockets. So
Mhm.
they love this kind of confusion and they will welcome it with open arms. The people of Guyana, as I have said, this stress that they have gone through to get this $100,000, they end up spending probably all, if not half, of it behind the stress that it was associated with.
Yes.
I know of several people having to travel long distances to collect this $100,000. They had to withstand the hunger to stay in long lines to collect this $100,000. They had to be exposed to Mother Nature, heavy sunlight, and so on. Some people even fainted, we were told, at the National Insurance Scheme area.
Yeah.
There's so many stressful events that have led to the collection of this $100,000. It would have been better for people to get a $200,000. 100,000 would have compensated for the stress, and the additional 100 would have been what they have gotten. So when you think about it, it's not cash distribution. It is something that people really had to work for to get because that $100,000 was associated with so many disturbances in people's lives. It was as though they worked for it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Before we go to the next topic, which is the motion that was piloted in the National Assembly by Vola Lawrence as it relates to the rehabilitation of the Lee Repentier Cemetery, I want to quickly just throw back to you two more of the results from the survey that was conducted across the country, in which over 15,000 Guyanese participated in that survey. Several questions were asked of them, and these are just some of the results. I'll go through a couple of them. We will expound, and then we'll go to the next one. So, when the question was asked, do you trust the current government? You have 9% of the respondents said yes, and you had 91% said no. Next question. Do you feel safe in Guyana? 33% said yes, 67% said no. Cost of living, and this is the big one. I did share when I spoke with Annette Ferguson and Coretta McDonald, is that in the last year, several incumbent governments that went to the election lost those elections, and mainly due to the cost of living, the high cost of living that is being experienced in the respective country. Save and except Modi of India, who lost a lot of seats, but he retained power. So, cost of living, when the question was asked about cost of living in Guyana, how do you rate cost of living in Guyana? Is it high or it is not an issue? 12% of the respondents said it is not an issue for them. That might be the government, the friends and family or favorites, while 88% of the respondents said the cost of living is extremely high. Another one was if given the opportunity to migrate, we had 59%, and this is very instructive. 59% said no, while 41% said yes. And of course, I said it's very instructive because, as adumbrated by Annette and Coretta, is that despite the issues that we have in the country, and issues brought about by a political party that lacks the ability to govern, those are the issues. Despite those issues, people love Guyana. There's no place like home. There's no place like Guyana. And they prefer to stay here as opposed migrating. All of those that I throw to you, Ganesh, in your expansion.
No, well, it comes back to what I have said. The people have a choice to make now, and there are several polls that have shown that the People's Progressive Party is not loved by the people of Guyana, and they will be facing the necessary actions of the people at the next elections. The people just have to be sensible in how they respond by putting their ex next to a competent group of people whom I've always said is the APNU AFC. And right now, with this young cohort, this young crop of leaders that the APNU AFC is presenting to the electorate, is that group of people to move the country forward. And we will ensure that it happens within the ambits of good governance, transparency, and accountability. And we can only do that by guaranteeing ourselves to be held accountable by the people. We have to move in the direction of getting rid of this government. We cannot be so rich as a nation, but yet so poor as a people. It is not fair to us that we are so rich as a nation, but yet so poor as a people. So, together, the people have to vote for a government that has their welfare and well being as priority. And the AP and UAFC demonstrated that in the past by way of investment into the people. The public sector workers can confirm that in 2015, minimum wage was $35,000. And from $35,000, it raised by the AP and UAFC to $85,000. And to date, minimum wage has not been moved by the People's Progressive Party in 4 years, 4 plus years. And we know that salaries and benefits to the ordinary has always been a priority of the coalition. The difference between the People's Progressive Party and the coalition is that the People's Progressive Party sees this country as a business entity, one where they have to take what is owned by the country and invest it for the rich to benefit. And then they expand that gap. They widen that gap that exists between the haves and the have not. And they expand that gap between the rich and the poor. The coalition, on the other hand, has always focused on lifting the ordinary people and making the small man the real man. The coalition has always focused on the masses. The masses are the people who are suffering in this country. They are the ones that want the reliefs. They want proper reliefs, not these little chim cham chum what they're giving we from the People's Progressive Party. They need proper, substantial reliefs. And if there's substantial reliefs are given to the ordinary people, you're closing that gap that exists between the rich and the poor. The People's Progressive Party does not want to do that. They want to hog majority of the wealth for themselves, their friends, and their families. The coalition, on the other hand, wants to embrace the ordinary, hard-working, tax-paying Guyanese because with the majority being comfortable, the progress of the country will be lifted, the standard of the country will be lifted, the delivery of services in the country will be lifted. And that is what will move us in a genuine way to get us into that developed state that we should be at. But with the People's Progressive Party, we will always be developing. And we need to stop being developing and move to being developed. And I hope that one day we will be able to do that with the coalition, of course.
Excellent. Well put, Ganesh. Thank you very much. All right. So, viewers, we now move to the motion that was tabled in the National Assembly by Voller and Lawrence. And in fact, two motions. One motion sought to do rehabilitation at the border market, and the other seek to do rehabilitation at the Lee Repentier Cemetery. The government indicated that they have provisions in Budget 2025 to take care of the border market, and as such, that motion had to be withdrawn. But the Lee Repentier motion went through. Despite not having any provision in the 2025 budget, the government ministers sought to put an argument on the floor that they had discussed the matter in cabinet. Now, none of us are members of cabinet, none of us are members of the PPP, so we are not privy to that information. But it's just a simple case that because the motion was brought by an opposition member, the government had to say, well, no, we had the same plans too. Ganesh, you, myself, were amongst the list of speakers. Your views on the government lashing out at the Groucho City Council, amongst other things.
Well, Chris, first of all, the Repentier Cemetery is a monumental place, a sacred place, and in the hearts of many, if not all, Guyanese. The land space caters for so many tombs, and we know that several prominent figures are buried there at the Repentier Cemetery. Many people may not know, but the Enmore martyrs are buried there. Deborah Bakker is buried there. I think Walter Rodney is buried there, among several other noticeable and notable figures of society. Outside of that fact, every country, and I did not get to make this point in the debate because the heckling was so much and I had to respond to so many madness from the People's Progressive Party. But I did not get to make this point, and that is several, if not all, countries in the world. They have a national cemetery, one that their central government embraces, develops, and makes into an eye-catching place. When you pass it and you see how neatly the tombs are laid, and you see the proportion, the space in between, the well-cut grass, and the niceness of the cemeteries that you go to various countries and see, you are forced to believe that you know what, you can walk in anytime, sit down and gaff with any one of those tombs, if you understand what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
But in Guyana, you can't do that with the Larapentier Cemetery. The Larapentier Cemetery is a frightening sight. And it is the People's Progressive Party that has always stymied the mayor and city council of Georgetown, starving them of resources. And I don't know how they expect a city council that is collecting the same tax as it was 50 years ago for today to do work that is happening. If that is the case, then let us give them a budget that is the same as it was 50 years ago and see if they can do the same thing
Yeah.
that was done 50 years ago. The context of their argument was foolish. The political ranting and their stupidity was completely exposed. And it's most unfortunate that we had to endure those hours behind a motion that could have been passed in half an hour.
Exactly. But you know what it also did in the debates, it also exposed um the PPP's attempt over a number of years to gain control
Homes
of
are
the city.
collapsing.
Because if you
Roadways
notice,
are being used as burial spaces. There is the dumping of garbage, and altogether, the Lerpentier Cemetery looks like a jungle. Citizens have long called for the restoration of this cemetery, which was built in 1861 and is the resting place for several prominent Guyanese. The matter became a hot topic during a sitting of the National Assembly on Monday, when opposition Member of Parliament Valda Lawrence presenting a motion calling on the government to support the restoration. She also told the National Assembly that the Georgetown Mayor and City Council, under whose purview this cemetery falls, is without the requisite funds to carry out what is likely to be a massive restoration project. The government, through Minister of Public Works Juan Egil, responded, offering support to the government's call for the restoration of this cemetery. But Egil also told the National Assembly that the government already has a plan that has also been set in motion. That plan includes the rehabilitation of several main roads, footpaths, and also internal roads for this cemetery. Egil also talked about improving the drainage network and putting lighting and security in place. Let's take a look as Egil outlined that plan in the House.
all right. So that was,
Chris,
of
they never
course,
had a plan. Don't let us
no.
fool ourselves.
I agree with you. I just want to quickly credit newsroom and Kirk Campbell there for that reporting that was done by them. Go ahead, Ganesh.
They never had a plan. If they had a plan, it would have been documented in the national budget,
Correct.
which we debated just a couple of mornings back.
Exactly.
They never had a plan.
Yeah.
It was a motion that came with a simple request. And that request was for us to restore the Repentier Cemetery to give it a facelift and make it accessible to various family members who have their loved ones buried there that don't have access, and to basically upgrade the state of the Repentier Cemetery. And everybody knows that it is a sore, an eyesore to the nation. But they
Exactly.
never had a plan, because if they did have a plan,
It
it
would
would
have.
have come out in either Jill's budget question and answering segment or
Yeah.
Sonia Parag. And we both know that Ejil was grilled by David Patterson and Annette Ferguson over his budgetary spending. All the monies were grilled, and not once was there any mention of any cemetery being rehabilitated. And then when it came to local government and regional development, I grilled Sonia Parag on all the line items, and not once was anything mentioned about cemetery. And that is why the speaker had to allow this motion to go through for debate, because there was no mention or any evidence to support that cemeteries are catered for. And that is why the motion on the border market had to be recalled, because it was submitted long before budget. But due to the budget now, it came out in the questioning that I had with Sonia Parag that they were dealing with border market as one of the four regional projects to be developed on the regional development. So the cemetery was never in the making of being developed. And that is why the motion won, so to speak. The opposition won in terms of calling on the government to do it. But to hide shame and to take away from them, they had to say that they have it as a plan, because it would have been very foolish had Edgel said, "Thank you for this motion. We never thought about it this way, and
Yes.
we will do it the right way." It would have looked
Exactly.
stupid on their part, but they never had a plan. They never.
Exactly. All right. No, but I was also making the point too. What came out in the debate, because speaker after speaker on the government side keep lamenting the fact that the Georgetown City Council has been under the control of the People's National Congress as far back as independence. And that, for me, is the kicker. So the issue is not the restoration of the Le Repentier, is who controls the city. And I remind the viewers back when we had the local government elections, when you had Barrett Jagdeo committed over $9 billion into those local government elections because he wanted to gain control of several municipalities, which included Georgetown, Linden, and New Amsterdam. And the people again rejected them. So they stated, they keep putting out there that the Georgetown City Council is responsible for it and they should clean it up and so forth. And what came out in our presentation is when we alluded to the fact that several government agencies and ministries, including all of the ministries, whether it's Ministry of Health, Education, and so forth, has outstanding rates and taxes for the Georgetown City Council, which amounts to over $19 billion. So if the government just decide that, listen, tomorrow we will write a check and pay to the Georgetown City Council this $19 billion that all of these government buildings and agency owe to City Council by itself would be able to um, do the rehabilitation of the Le Repentier Cemetery. They will be able to put up street lights in several communities. They will be able to clean drains and do the roads and so forth. But the PPP, wanting to have control of the city for a number of years, as they mentioned, as they put it, since independence, that they starve the city of the resources that is needed. So the people in Georgetown will become outraged and in a local government election vote for the PPP and not the PNC. That is what came out in the debates, but they fail again and again and again because the people know what's going on in Ganesh.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like all of the years that I've known the PPP have always believed that the people of Guyana are stupid people. That Guyanese know that there's corruption. Guyanese know that we thieving. Guyanese know me side chick got a contract. Guyanese know me husband and wife got a contract. The people are aware. Listen, you want to if you want to get political insight in terms of what is happening in this country, you go and sit with the average Guyanese. Go on the bus park, have a chat with the bus driver, the taxi driver, go and chat with the vendors and the people are aware. And that is why, no matter what propaganda the PPP puts out there, the Guyanese people are astute and more so. This is 2025, not 1984 when you had no phone, no light, no internet, cell phone. The people have the information, and that is why going into these elections, as we approach wrap up time, going into these elections, and we continue to stress the people about um, the people centered economy, a people
Development
centered
strategy.
development strategy that the People's National Congress (APNU) has in place. So take us through snippets of that. I know you have a whole host of information to share with us. Take us out with those insights, Ganesh.
Well, I know that we're coming down to program time, and the last any one of us want to do is to impinge on the In
Yes,
the Ring program with
that's right.
Cheryl Duncan. I know a lot of
That's right.
people who are viewing us are also fans of In the Ring.
Yeah.
But to put it in a nutshell and to succinctly say that the people centered development strategy is a focused plan on making the small man the real man. It is about using the resources that are at our disposal to benefit the ordinary people. It is about lifting the ordinary people out of the nightmare that they find themselves in. And the people centered development strategy breaks down all the various sectors that we have in terms of how we intend to administer these various sectors much to the benefits of the people. For example, instead of giving people just a single house lot that is underdeveloped and not done in a manner where the people can basically move in right away and have a comfortable life, we intend to give people homes that are built to specification and properly. And we intend to hold engineers accountable should they deliver shabby work to the people and citizens of this country. It is called a rent to own program. So, if, for example, a house cost $13 million and I will like to buy that house from the government for $13 million, instead of me taking out $13 million from my account, which I don't have, by the way, I can go into an arrangement with the government to rent this property for $40,000 a month, and I pay that $40,000 until I end up paying the $13 million at no interest. And when my $13 million have finished paying that, the house becomes my own. And I think that's a fantastic strategy. I think it's a fantastic plan. I think it is well organized and orchestrated to benefit the working class and to benefit the citizens of Guyana, among so many other plans that are in place.
Yeah.
One that strikes me and I think needs some clarity because many people are running away from it is this $400,000 income tax threshold. Now, what that means, and the PPP has been interpreting it their own way, and they are not benefiting from interpreting it that way because they are wrong. It simply means, like, for example, if a person is working right now for $250,000, what that means is that income tax threshold right now is at $100,000, $130,000. I think it has gone up to. So if income tax threshold is at $130,000, the difference from $250,000 is what you pay in taxes. So right now, a person who earns 200 and let's say $250,000, 130 minus from 250 is what? $120,000. Chris, you know, maths does be sometimes a little problematic. So the $120,000 becomes taxable. You take home the 130 and the 120 becomes taxable. What when we say we will move income tax threshold to 400,000 simply means that none of your money will be taxed because you are below $400,000 in your earning. So you get to take home that full $250,000 to your family. If you're earning $150,000 right now, because 130 is non-taxable, the $20,000 is taxable if you're earning 150,000. So 130 you get to take home and 20 is being taxed. With the threshold going to 400,000, it means that you get to take home all $150,000. If the
Excellent.
salary is
Excellent.
300,000 or 350, you get to take home all. As long as you're earning below 400,000, you get to take home all with
All
no
of that money.
problems. And
Excellent.
we are also promising the hardworking public servants, the teachers, the doctors, the nurses, a 35% increase in their salaries, which we believe will take them to a livable wage so that they can cope with this heavy cost of living. Chris, there's so many other
Yeah.
different ones that we have, which will be articulated during the
In the
campaign
community.
time and be placed in our manifesto. I believe that the people will trust us. I believe the people will see the need to elect us to government and they will enjoy that 5 years period with us as we lead the way and build a strong foundation for the other 5 years to come, where we will make Guyana a better place for you and I and our future generation. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent, Ganesh Paul. We'll have to leave it there. Viewers, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And of course, I was having the discourse with Mr. Ganesh Mahiaul, a Central Executive Member of the People's National Congress Reform and also the Shadow Minister of Local Government and Regional Development. On tonight's program, we were discussing cash grants, checks that have gone missing. Over $60 million in cash grant checks have since gone missing. Join me next week, Tuesday at 7 p.m. I will have the Vice Chairman of the PNCR and Shadow Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Vince Roy Jordan, and we'll have the discussion there. Until then, have a pleasant rest of your evening. We invite you now to join Sherrod Duncan in the ring. Goodbye for now.